Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here and I'm back again with a brand new video. Before I begin, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, make sure you leave a thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So with that being said, today we're going to be discussing the camera on the Galaxy A36, and this is basically going to be my in-depth camera look and camera review. And I have a couple of things that I want to talk about when it comes to the camera of the Galaxy A36. So the first thing is within the camera design itself. So Samsung did take a different approach in their A lineup this time around with designing the Galaxy A36's camera. In the past, you would see each camera has its own designated ring around it. This time is just one oval ring all around the triple camera setup, and it does provide a fresh look, but the camera does protrude quite a bit, so it's not going to sit flat on a table or any flat surface for that regard. But to be honest with you, it gives it a nice look. It gives it a refreshing look. So now I want to get into details about the camera specs. So it is a triple camera setup with your main sensor being a 50 megapixel at f1.8 aperture, which does have optical image stabilization. You also get an 8 megapixel ultra wide, a 5 megapixel macro sensor, and from the video perspective, we will definitely talk about it later on, but here's your basic specs: 4K 30 or 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second. The front facing camera is a 12 megapixel f2.2 that also provides 4K video recording and 1080p. Also, it does support 10-bit HDR. More on that later. So just like the interface of the phone, the camera app did also receive sort of a fresh look. Now basically it's still kind of the same formula, the simplistic app, but you get a lot of your modes at the bottom instead of at the top of the phone. And you get your different shooting options such as Pro Mode, Pro Video, Night, Food, Slow Motion, Super Slow Motion, Macro, Panorama, Single Take, and Hyperlapse. In addition to that, the settings option is also easily accessible. So you have a couple of more options here where you can switch from the 12 megapixel standard to actually shooting in 50 megapixels, your exposure, your different filters. And it does even support the ability to change a couple of things when it comes to the filter, like your color, temperature, saturation, contrast. And you can even add the intelligent features that Samsung has been boasting about. Now, you do have to have a Samsung account to use those features. Also, this camera has another neat feature, I would say, is that you do have up to 10x of digital zoom. So switching between your main sensor and your ultra wide is fairly quick. It's not the quickest that I've seen, but it's definitely respectable. And you do have the ability to go to your main sensor. So we'll also give you the option for 2x macro sensor or 10x digital zoom, which we will definitely look at some samples. So now let's actually speak on image quality, and here is what I've been able to gather in the past couple of days using this phone and taking consistent pictures. One, I want to say that the color is not the most accurate thing. However, it does a very respectable job in taking some good solid pictures in outdoor conditions under the right sunlight. And details is there, and I do want to say in some scenarios it does overexpose, and in other scenarios it does properly expose. So it's not as consistent. Color is alright. However, this phone does have a problem with its autofocusing system. So it's definitely inconsistent. So sometimes it does good job in focusing, other times it misses focus. But when it does focus very well, the image come out very sharp. So by default, it's 12 megapixels, but you can up to that and use the actual 50 megapixel resolution that this camera provides. But you have to keep in mind that the image size would be larger. Now the dynamic range on here is also respectable, so it does a pretty good job in balancing the picture. Obviously, switching between the main sensor and the ultra wide, there's a distinct and immediate notice of loss in quality. So colors are not as vibrant, they're not as good, and yeah, there's just definitely a decent loss. I do have to say that the 8 megapixel ultra wide is very similar to the previous generation, so not much has changed in that regard. But one of the things that I do have to give props to is that in some scenarios the shadows look pretty good on this phone. Now the 10 times zoom is going to be a horrible quality. Obviously it is digital, it's not optical, but you have it, you can use it if you want to. But for the most part, it's the same story. When it comes to taking sharp images, if the autofocus works very well, then expect to get some pretty respectable pictures. Otherwise, if it's going to be that inconsistent, I would say take the shot multiple times to ensure that your subject is in focus. I do have to also give a thumbs up to the selfie camera on this phone because it's way better than the previous generation in my opinion. It's sharper than the actual main sensor in some scenarios, and it does a more balanced job in the skin tone. So now I want to speak a couple So now I want to speak about a couple of things when it comes to the video capability of the Galaxy A36. One being the fact that you can shoot 4K at 30 frames per second or 1080p at 30 or 60. Now there is some crop when it comes to switching between your video and your photo. It's actually kind of significant, especially when you go to 4K. Now, when you do shoot at 4K, you don't have the option to switch between your lenses. When you are at 1080p, you definitely do have that option. Same scenario with your front-facing camera. Now, the video capability of this phone is actually not too shabby. Again, though, same story is the fact that it's also still inconsistent when shooting video. So the exposure on here is inconsistent. The focusing can be good at times, but it still is inconsistent. So I guess that's the main story behind this phone, is just I wish it had some sort of consistency when it comes to taking pictures and videos. But I do have to say that switching between your modes is very simultaneous, very quick. And so the selfie video on this camera is really good. It's actually freaking solid. I think it's way better than the main sensor. Believe it or not. It is a 12 megapixel sensor, but it looks really good. It's way better than the previous generation as well. And you can also switch back simultaneously and even go from your main sensor to your ultra wide. I wish a lot more phones had that option. I think a lot of phones would benefit from that. And the microphone is also pretty decent. So if I were to leave you guys with one final thought about the Galaxy A36's camera, I do have to say that it's definitely an upgrade from the previous generation. However, is it worthwhile? Is it worth upgrading from the A35 to the A36? I don't think so. Not yet. Maybe when the price of the A36 comes down, but as of right now, I wouldn't just go out and spend 400 bucks on this phone. I think the market and the competition is really fierce when it comes to especially camera quality. Now, I do have to say that it still is a solid camera, as long as you take your pictures multiple times to ensure proper exposure and proper focus. So with that being said, I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. If you do have the Galaxy A36, do you like the camera experience on here? Do you hate it? How do you feel about it as a user? So leave it in the comments below. And even you guys, the people that don't have the A36, do you think after this video it's going to be worth your while or not? Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I will definitely catch you guys in the next one. Thank you all for watching.